This year, the region recorded a total of 5,587 adolescent pregnancies, representing 15.4%. 2.1% of the figure occurred among adolescents between the ages of 10 and 19 years, making the region the highest in teenage pregnancy prevalence. The Volta region came in second with 10,296 teenage pregnancies, representing 15.0%. Brong Ahafo and Eastern regions recorded 14% respectively. Upper West, Western and Central regions recorded 13%. Northern and Ashanti regions also recorded 11%, with Greater Accra region recording the lowest of 6%. With only 6 months into this year, some 57,000 adolescent girls are reported pregnant nationwide already. This was contained in a report produced by the Ashanti Regional Manager of Marie Stopes on August 3. Adolescent pregnancies in Ghana have been linked primarily to parental irresponsibility, poverty, lack of education, bad company, among others. But to Antoinette Gautu Darocha, project manager at the Planned Parenthood Association of Ghana, children access to pornographic sites could be a major contributory factor.
Technology is far advancing, and even in the rural areas, we still have those internet services there, and people try to go to websites that are not prescribed and are also affecting them in increasing their curiosity in finding out what exactly they've seen and how they really want to have an exposure or practice whatever they've seen in the internet.
Komla, who started watching pornography when he was 17 years, shared his experience with me.
The first time I was in my room, a friend of mine gave me the CD. I didn't watch it on the internet. So I was alone. At that time, my parents were out. No one was in the house. Yeah, I couldn't control myself. I was just there for a long time.
To Komla, parents could influence the kind of information available to their children.
Children getting access to the internet should be limited. Like, parents should be around, guide them as to the way they should use it.
Over 1,000 adolescent girls have visited PPAG clinics for pregnancy-related services within the first half of 2017. Antoinette also believes strict religious doctrines have prevented most people from playing safe.
A lot of people still have misconceptions, truth must be told, but there are some that also feel that if young people go on the family planning method, they'll become promiscuous, and so therefore they will not even allow the young person to go into family planning methods.
With 6 months to the end of the year, the current figures only put the country on the spotlight on how teenage pregnancy is being managed. William Evans Inkum, GH1 News, Accra.
And now those are some very interesting statistics from the report that Evans Inkum has assembled for us. But we have some experts in studio who are going to give us some understanding, because for somebody like me, I was completely ignorant about the scale of the problem. And I'm sure most of you at home equally have questions and need, clarity on some of these developments. In studio here, I have Mr. Simeon Kwame Champon, who's a Central Sector Manager for Marie Stopes. And so, Mr. Simon Champon, these numbers looks quite staring, aren't they?
Yes, yeah, good evening, and good evening to your cherished viewers. I mean, this is indeed scary, and it's about time all of us will do something about it. Half year we are recording over 50,000, and we should know that this is those who have visited most Ghana Health Service centers and have been recorded or captured in the data. This is minus those who got pregnant and never went to a hospital, and probably they will stay home and deliver, or those who got pregnant but decided to abort and so never stepped in hospital. That is half year. If you look at the trends over the past 4 years, averagely Ghana is recording about 110,000 teen pregnancies. And that is indeed scary. And probably somebody wouldn't have really appreciated the magnitude of it. If you recently watched the match between Kotoko and Hearts in Kumasi, the way the stadium was packed, Kumasi Sports Stadium, we are able to understand, has a capacity of 50,000. And so the half-year teenage pregnancy recorded in Ghana is like teenage mothers 10 to 19 who have fully filled Kumasi Sports Stadium. So,
Mr. Champo, not to cut you, and so for me, that is what was quite exciting. It's quite interesting, I should say, because if you look at the sizes of some of the districts we have in this country, it practically suggests that a whole district could generally, be for teenage pregnancy. That's the sort of stats we're happening to deal with. But let me throw in some numbers from some other jurisdictions, right? So we can have a proper appreciation of the scale of the problem, whether or not it's just a Ghanaian problem, or it's there are some regional trends that we can see in this. And interestingly, when I looked across Africa as a continent, for example, between 1992 and 2011, I think East Africa saw a significant drop in the number of teenage pregnancies that were being recorded as a percentage of the total number of childbirths that the country registered. I think that declined from about 33.3% to about 16.3%. Meanwhile, West Africa, we didn't do that much. What, in your expert opinion, will account for these disparities? And why is East Africa doing well and we in West Africa, particularly in Ghana, don't seem to be getting a hang over this?
Well, before 1990, the teenage pregnancy rate for Ghana was hovering around 22%. But in the past 16 years, we've seen it hovering around 14%. Just that it has plateaued, 14, 13, 14. And so Ghana, some time ago, we were also in the 20s, now we are in the 14s. So we've also done something about it. But in East Africa, they have done a lot in terms of promoting contraceptive use among teenagers. You cannot prevent people from having sex. The fact of the matter is that there were, in the 2014 Demographic and Health Survey, people who were from age 25 to 49, it came out that those who were age 18, 44% of the females had already started having sex.
Interesting.
18 years. And those who were, that is females, and it was 27 for the males. Those who were 15 years, about 20% of them, 15 years, have already started having sex. And so we cannot prevent people from having sex. They may enjoy it, but we have to, one, give information, the consequences of this, so that people will know and then practice. One, abstain. We'll always go with the ABC. 1A, abstain. B, be careful. C, use a condom if you want to go ahead and have sex. And so I believe that some parts in East Africa, they've tried to do well, especially on the sea, use of protection during sex, and that is what has worked for them.
Okay, so moving on, I see some of the statistics that your report threw up, some of the numbers, the regional distribution I'm referring to here, appears to suggest that, the Upper East and Upper West regions, some of these other regions that, if you like, you can associate some level of, economic hardships or less developed areas appear to be trending a lot more. Is that the reason? Is that the reading that Ghanaians should be making into this report?
That is it. We know that poverty accounts for teen pregnancies. When the young girls are not being able to be taken care of by their parents, and a guy comes around and says, I'll help you pay your school fees, or I'll help you with some food, I'll help you with clothing, I'll help you with a mobile phone. That alone is enough to woo those girls into bed. And a lot of them may not be protected sex and may come up out pregnant. And so we know that poverty accounts for that. But you can also see that in the northern regions, as compared to Accra and Kumasi may have a lot of health facilities. And so you can see that access to contraceptive services may be available. The fact that the pregnancies are not also being recorded may also mean that these pregnancies are being terminated. And so you realize that for the big cities, Accra, Takoradi, Kumasi, there may be access to health facilities that may provide safe abortion services to these girls in these big cities, unlike the northern regions, which may not have those facilities available.
Okay, so now that's interesting, and it begins to shape, the conversation we're having in studio, whether or not there's a part of the blame that has to go to policymakers and what it is that they're doing to help the country deal with this particular menace. So I'll introduce at this point Mr. Francis Okwama, who's a family planning activist, and I'm sure in your engagement as an activist speaking against this particular challenge and dealing with this issue, you may have come across some policymakers and some of the statistics that Mr. Champon here has put across. What is your reading of this?
Well, I mean, the realities in the communities show, and so for me, for instance, the figures actually do not, I'm not surprised, because I mean, things are happening in the communities, and before East Africa could even promote access to contraception or education, or should I say, comprehensive sexuality education, first of all, there are policies. So for instance, there are different groups of young people, those in school, those out of school, those displaced, different kinds of young people. So we need to, first of all, design these policies to meet their needs. Like Simeon said, you cannot stop them from having sex. And moreover, in this day and age, where you find out that a lot of these young people actually have smartphones. So nobody actually stops them from accessing whatever information they could have access to. So first of all, the problem is there. Why don't we drop policies and strategies that could actually target these special groups of young people and then provide the education and services that they need? For instance,
Mr. Okwama, are you suggesting that there's an absence of policies in this regard?
There isn't, actually.
There isn't? That's quite alarming.
There are policies, I would say, but I could also tell you that there are gaps.
Okay.
So, for instance, I know there's this debate, especially with young people around my circle of work. There's this debate about the consent to sex. If you are 16 years, you can, consent to sex. Literally, you can have sex. You can say, yes, I want to have sex. However, if you cannot marry unless you are 18. Okay, so this 1 year, 2 year gap, I mean, there's something in there. So literally, you are telling them, like you are telling me I'm 16. Yes, I can say I can have sex, but then I cannot marry. Therefore, at this age, you find a lot of these young girls, plus the fact that there is poverty, the fact that young girls need things to do, and they are trying to find other sources of making ends meet. And so in some communities where there are no facilities for them to even go build their skills or do something, sometimes they fall prey to some men who even lure them with all sorts of things. I could tell you, in some communities, people give out for like 1 cedi. They will just go have sex to get some money, okay? So like there are real issues on the ground, and until we understand the better perspectives of these very young people within the communities, perhaps the gaps within these communities will never be bridged.
Now, in rounding up, I'm going to come back to you, Mr. Kwame Champon. And so, Kwabene Champon, sorry about that. So, from what I hear both of you say, it looks like it appears to suggest that some men are being irresponsible. Is that a valid conclusion?
Well, it's interesting to note that about 8 out of 10 of the men who impregnate these young girls are their peers, unfortunately. For some time ago, I thought it was big men like my type and your type and senior guys.
I'm not a big man. I'm not going to wear that suit. I'm not a big man.
Who were causing this mayhem. But unfortunately, about 8 out of 10 guys who impregnate these girls are by their peers, and that makes it serious. I mean, so these are guys who are also in school and cannot even make a living by themselves, and for them to support these young girls. And the fact of the matter is, these girls will drop out of school, and these boys will continue to secondary school, tertiary, and they'll come back one day and say, Adwa, you are not my class, because I've gone to university to meet a girl who has degrees so and so. And so these girls will be left back there, and the guys will go up there.
Right. And so what you are saying effectively is that our struggle as a country to bridge the gap between what the women can do and what the men can do is not just a matter of just education at, say, the tertiary level, or empowering the girl child to stay in school, but we should look at some of these underlying factors and effectively address them. Right?
That's right.
Right. Okay. Well, it's been very interesting having both of you, Mr. Simeon Kwabene Champon, who's a central sector manager for Marriage Stopes, and family planning activist Francis Okwama. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing these insights with us on teenage pregnancy in Ghana at the moment. Abena, you're a woman. How does all of this play out for you?
I'm saddened. The figures, they are not looking good at all. 50,000.
What were you doing at 15?
At 15, I was in school. I'm sure if I had gotten pregnant, well, some people get pregnant and still move on with their lives. But for me, I don't think I would have been here.
But that depends on the sort of family supports that you would get. And given the fact that most of our family, infrastructure is not as solid as it was historically.
So that's why I'm saying that I wouldn't be here if I had found myself in that situation. But I really think that the sex education needs to go down to the people. Because if they are being impregnated by their peers, and the boys go ahead to school, and then the ladies will have to drop out. There are no systems for them to continue their education even after giving birth. So it's quite alarming, and I think we should look at that.
Well, that's the conversation will continue for those of you at home. The implication of this, for example, on issues of abortion and the position of the country itself and your own cultural and religious predisposition on all of these issues. But you should bear in mind that in all cases, there are serious developmental challenges that this presents to us as a country.
All right, let's move on and bring you some other stories here on News Tonight. The Kumasi Circuit Court, presided over by Her Honor Mary Century, has adjourned the case involving 13 members of the Delta Force for assaulting the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator, Georgia J., who was appointed by President Akufo-Addo.
According to ACP Ochre Dako, Ashanti Regional Police Prosecutor, necessary documents for the prosecution of the culprits has been completed and docket handed over to the Attorney General Office for advice. As a result, the presiding judge, Her Honor Mary Century, was compelled to adjourn the case to the 5th of September 2017. Meanwhile, lead counsel for Delta Force, lawyer Matthew Appiah, is content with the adjournment. He spoke to journalists after court proceedings.
Today, we have been told that the police have completed their investigation and they have forwarded the docket back to the Attorney General Department. So, at least today, we think that progress is being made. So, it's now left with the advice. So, maybe at the next agenda, hopefully, we know that the advice will come.
The 13 suspects were arrested after they stormed the office of the Ashanti Regional Security Coordinator and escaped from a Kumasi Circuit Court. The 13 suspects have already been fined 2,400 Ghana cedis each and have been made to sign a bond of good behavior for escaping lawful custody. Meanwhile, the fellow group members who aided their escape from court custody had the case against them dropped.
We'll take you outside of Ghana now, where members of the ECOWAS Parliament are demanding action from their various governments in the sub-region towards a reduction in the cost of education. The MPs also want educational systems harmonized across West Africa community. This, according to lawmakers, will enable free movement of human resources for mutual benefit of countries within the sub-region. The above came to light during a joint meeting of committees on education and communication technology here in Accra. Speaking at the program, the leader of Ghana's delegation, MP for Suhum, Opare Ansa, tasked governments to treat harmonization of educational systems as urgent.
Harmonization of our educational system and curricula should be an urgent priority for the community. We must therefore endeavor to ensure the necessary support that will be agreed upon will be given to all stakeholders to make this a reality. Member states should be prepared to adopt whatever changes will be put forward or improvements that need to be instituted to ensure that they are on par with the rest of the community with regards to standards. It is refreshing to note that the government of Ghana has made education its topmost priority and has recently announced its plans to make secondary level education free in addition to free basic level education.
And in a related development, the Minister of State in charge of tertiary education, Professor Kwesi Yankah, who graced the opening ceremony, called for measures to ensure governments do not work at cross purposes in educating the populace in West Africa.
As a country living among a community of nations, some francophone, others Anglophone, some educational standards based on British models, others based on French models. One needs a code, a key to establish equivalences. And we are indeed delighted that the Joint Commission of ECOWAS Parliament is undertaking an exercise in monitoring compliance with decisions taken to harmonize academic standards and facilitate mobility among students and intellectuals. In all these member countries in West Africa will then rest assured that mobility across countries goes hand in hand with high quality and uniformity in educational service delivery.
Now, the Deputy General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, Nana Obribwai, says he expects major amendments in the party's constitution following some calls from the majority of the party members who are pursuing the same cause. Now, explaining the modalities, he said the party's annual conference slated to take place in Cape Coast on August 25th to 27th, 2017, and he added that the executive decision, which will be elicited after the conference with all executives and party stakeholders from the 275 constituencies, would influence the party's elections. He spoke exclusively to GH1 News.
I expect major changes. There were a lot of proposals, plethora of resolutions, plethora of suggestions, and no single individual can tell you the outcome of these suggestions. It's only when we go to Cape Coast, then we will deliberate over them.
And in a related development, there's simmering anger among executives of the governing New Patriotic Party in the Biakoye constituency of the Volta region over a supposed nomination of a known opposition party member as a district chief executive for the area.
The presiding member of the Biakoye District Assembly, Christy Nutako, believed to be a staunch member of the National Democratic Congress, is accused of canvassing stakeholder support in the area. The MPP regional executives say Nutako is claiming to be the president's next choice for the vacant DCE position. This was after an initial DCE nominee for the area, Madam Millicent Kabuki Kabo, failed to sail through the confirmation test of the assembly members on 3 occasions. At a press conference held in Ho, the Biakoye NPP leadership said the development is creating tension among the party's rank and file in the area. They therefore called on the presidency, as well as the regional and national party hierarchy, to come clear on the issue.
Does it mean that the party in the constituency lacks qualified persons, that they have to fall on a known NDC woman? One thing is for sure. The party in the constituency will never be the same again if it turns out that an NDC woman is to become the leader of the MPP in the Biakoye constituency as the district chief executive.
Meanwhile, when contacted for her side of the story, Madam Christy Nutako expressed surprise at the action of the Biakoye MPP leadership, but said she was only playing her role as the presiding member of the assembly to court support for the initial DCE nominee, Millicent Kabuki Kabo, who was eventually rejected by the assembly members on 3 consecutive occasions. She, however, indicated that as the only female district assembly presiding member in the region, she is ever ready to serve in any capacity.
All right, it's time for us to take a break, and we will return with business, sports, and also take you to Kenya. Do stay tuned to News Tonight.
The best TV reality show is about to hit our screens.
Wow! How do you register?
On your phone, just like this.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Madam, you have the nerves to walk into my office with a crumpled top. How dare you? Get out.
You are being biased.
Yeah, that's why you're there and I'm here. By the way, you get out. You're fine. I'm not surprised. Madam, it's not you. Sir, you're out. Young man, you're hired.
Yes! The Job. Coming soon. Headline sponsor. Dealers Finance. And powered by Exponent FX.
Five regions, 5 marshals, over 40 destinations.
Anything can happen. Close the swamp and the crocodiles.
The thrills, the adventure.
Get inside and you never come back.
Reliving the lost history, experiencing the culture.
Even the kids have the same respect when anybody enters this place, and this place is the house of Okonfo Anoche, the most powerful fetish priest ever lived.
10 intriguing stories with the Sky Marshals, showing this and every Saturday at 2:30 p.m. on GH1 TV.
Sensitivity definitely holds you back. You tend to avoid a whole lot of things, and that's not you. You have a tiring day, you grab a cold water, you are drinking it. The pain comes, and it's so very sharp, and you just stop for like some seconds. Someone talks to you, and you're like, wait. That was when I was like, I have to do something about it. So I saw a dentist, and she recommended Sensodyne. I'm like, I just need toothpaste. Life's back to normal. Even better than normal. That was good. No pain, no shock.
Welcome back to News Tonight. Now time to take a look at some developments within the business circles and the economy with Kweku Timi. Kweku, over to you.
All right, thank you, Patrick and Abena. It's quite interesting if you run along the East Legon area, if you live in Accra, or you move probably towards the N1 highway, and you could see their flashy buildings in and around the Jowulu area. But the central bank is simply saying, hey, they operate without a license. Do not deal with them. I'm talking about Men's Bank. When we come back, we have this and other interesting details. All right, so the name is Men's Gold. Now, the Bank of Ghana has cautioned the public against investing in Men's Gold Finance. Speaking at a Public Accounts Committee sitting, Second Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, Johnson Esiama, explained the microfinance company has not been licensed to take deposits from customers. Esiama added that the BOG has rolled out measures to ensure fraudulent schemes such as the DKM and others do not get the opportunity to deprive unsuspecting clients of their hard-earned cash.
We caused a publication in the newspapers about Men's Gold to the effect that we haven't licensed them to accept deposits. Because to accept deposits, you need a license from Bank of Ghana. We haven't licensed them for that purpose. And hence, if you go ahead to do business with them, it's at your own risk. The Minerals Commission has given them a license to purchase gold. I hope you get that. So based on that, we cannot just get up and go and close them down. There has to be evidence that they are accepting deposits, thereby flouting our regulations. These people are not to accept deposits. If they ask you to give them money, don't give it to them. Now we are following on from the next level, where we will have to sit down with the respective agencies, and I've instructed that we need to work together to pin them down. Because if they are licensed to purchase gold, that doesn't have anything to do with us.
All right, so within the coming days, we'll try and get you more updates and reactions probably from Men's Gold. Indeed, if they are taking deposits or probably the system that they operate is a different one, I can stand and give you reasons. But I know the central bank have said be cautious when dealing with them. We'll move on to other stories, and here the Director of Research at the Institute of Fiscal Studies, Dr. Kwache, has cautioned government to tread cautiously as it continues to post aggressive revenue targets under a tight fiscal regime. Now, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, in the 2017 Media Review budget statement, announced reviewed downwards the 44.5 billion Ghana cedis to 43.1 billion cedis. But the Director of Research of IFS believes the figure is overly ambitious.
The Institute for Fiscal Studies initially established that government missed its 2017 half-year target because it failed to spend in some critical sectors of the economy and also refused to pay valid arrears to contractors, a situation they noted impacted heavily on growth in Ghana's non-oil sector. Addressing the media in a post-media budget review, Director of Research at the IFS, Dr. John Kwache, stated that a decline in revenue targets by about 2.3 billion cedis and a drop in government expenditure contributed to the strains in fiscal and monetary policies pursued by the government.
It is the IFS view, however, that the revised target still remains ambitious. And the reason is that in the first half of the year, revenue growth was just 6.5% year on year. So to achieve the new target will require revenue to increase by as much as 48.3% year on year in the second half of 2017.
Meanwhile, Executive Director of IFS, Professor Newman Kusi, maintains that government needs to do more to propel economic growth by demanding more from the little they spend.
The IFS is very worried about how the fiscals have been managed, and particularly the fact that revenue is falling drastically, and as a result, government is cutting expenditures because they are eyeing us at a certain fiscal deficit target. We are saying that, look, we cannot leave, government cannot leave the revenue to fall like that, because it is what influences the government capacity to spend.
All right, that's some information from the IFS. It's now time for us to dash into the aviation sector. And here the Aviation Minister, Cecilia Abena, says Ghana is a signatory to the Yamoussoukro Declaration, which enjoins it to liberalize its airspace to facilitate commerce, tourism, and the inflow of foreign direct investment. Well, she has therefore called on players in the aviation sector to create that effective business environment that will ensure that major airline brands come into the country to do business in our airspace.
Statistics from the International Air Association shows that in 2016, some 3.8 billion passengers patronized the airline transport, while some 54.9 million tons of goods were delivered via air globally. It is also estimated that air travelers spent around $650 billion in 2016. The value of international trade shipped by air was also estimated at $5.5 trillion in 2016. Prevailing data from the Ghana Airport Company also shows that Europe remains the most popular destination for travelers, commanding over 37.6% of the outbound traffic as of the end of the first quarter of this year. This is closely followed by travels through the West Africa sub-region, which has so far recorded over 20.3% of outbound international traffic. Aviation Minister Cecilia Abena tells GH1 Business there is a huge potential for the growth in Ghana's aviation industry, and government was committed to investing the needed resources to ensure that the industry thrives.
Air transport, we all know,
plays a key role in facilitating tourism, travel, investments, and it's vital to international trade and connects people and cities. It is also used to save lives and facilitate economic growth. The strength of the major economies in the region and the demography of the population shows that there is a huge potential for the growth of aviation in the sub-region. I therefore urge all of you to adopt best industry practices to ensure that travel to and within Ghana is as seamless as possible.
All right, so thank you very much for staying with us in business. Well, in just about a short while, I've been picking into the Kenyan economy. It's an economy where they do a lot of planting in terms of flowers and the like, and place emphasis on ICT. Their elections is crucial for Ghana and other African countries. Well, when we come back, my colleagues will delve deep into the Kenyan elections. That's about it for business tonight.
Over to take a look at Insight now, where we go to Kenya. And President Uhuru Kenyatta voted a while ago and says that he feels good, adding he's confident that the Kenyan people will renew his mandate to continue his transformational agenda for the country.
We also understand that Raila Odinga, the presidential candidate, is also set to arrive in Kibra anytime, or is there right now, is arriving in. Let's listen in.
Naomba kuingia K24, naomba kuingia K24.
Okay, he's almost done verifying, or rather going through the process. I think he's just ticked his name, verified his name is over there. He will be shortly going now confidentially to tick the name of the president, governor, senator, women's rep. Details, of course, that are just personal and completely confidential. Yeah, the First Lady over there, Margaret Kenyatta. And on the other hand, in Kibra, Raila Odinga is also set to arrive over there. He has arrived over there. There you have pictures over there, voters in happiness over there, that their preference of candidate has just arrived in Kibra. So those are the two front presidential candidates, President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga. We will be getting pictures from Kibra, more accurate pictures from there to show the candidate Raila Odinga. Our reporter Mudibo is also on the ground who will be giving us that. But right now, those are...
I continue with my message that all Kenyans must exercise their democratic right, their right to vote, their right to choose leaders of their choice, and ultimately for people to go home like I am just about to do and await the results of the Electoral Commission.
Mr. President, it's been a very grueling, Robert McGinnis, it's been a very grueling campaign season. It's just coming to an end. How do you feel at the moment?
I feel good. I feel positive. We have run a very positive campaign telling Kenyans what we have done, yes, what we intend to do. And I believe that Kenyans have the ability to choose and reflect as to the direction they want us to move. And I believe that they want us to continue moving forward. They want us to continue living in peace and harmony and unity. They want us to have progress. And I believe that they will give Jubilee an opportunity to continue with the agenda that we have already started for this country.
Mr. President, what is your message to Kenyans as they continue undertaking this exercise?
Peace, 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 peace.
And what is the target?
Nawaambia amani, 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 amani.
And votes are being counted in Kenya after the general elections, which took place today, with long winding queues and no major security problem being reported. Now, some polling stations remained open after the deadline in areas where heavy rainfall and other logistical problems had hampered voting. Incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta is hoping for a second term in office, but faces a tough challenge from his longtime rival, Raila Odinga. Now, many fear a repeat of the violence that followed the disputed 2007 election. Many voters in the capital say this was their best voting experience ever.
Now, going back into the day, President Kenyatta's main contender, Raila Odinga, has been speaking exclusively to Kenyan broadcaster KTN TV after he voted. These are some excerpts.
Right, that's NASA leader Raila Odinga there casting his vote. Those are pictures that took place a little earlier in the day in Kibra. He cast his vote at the old Kibera Primary School. It's interesting. There's a lot of interest in Kenya.
Yeah.
Why do you think so?
No, Kenya is this country that we cannot compare ourselves with anybody in Africa. Actually cannot. We normally talk about Ghana and other places, but Kenya is this different country where freedom also works. Think of this credibility that we have here. It's all because the opposition has made enough noise. Yeah.
The first time when I ran for the president, I don't think I was even ready. It was just like a warm-up match, you know, just checking the ground to see how it was. I think in the last two races I ran, which were most serious races, and as you know, I won twice and I was denied twice. So I'm very, very confident that this time around things are going to be different. Yes.
All right. In terms, of course, there's a big question. This has two outcomes. Either you win or you lose. Do you have two speeches?
I have only one speech. I say that I'm confident I'm going to win. But in the unlikely event that I lose, I don't need a speech. I will speak from the heart. Okay? So I don't have a problem.
You don't have a problem. You said you received some calls this morning. Of course, voting has begun in many parts of the country. From your agents, what are you hearing in terms of the voting process today?
Generally, in a number of parts of the country, they're saying that the process is okay. There are a few areas where they're saying it is slow. Some others they're saying that it's open late. Like some places they're saying they lost nearly 2 hours, even 3 hours in some places.
All right, so the voting has ended, and we are all looking forward to that man who will become the next president of Kenya. Patrick, I'm tempted to ask you this. Who are you looking out for?
Well, I think even before they went to the polls, quite a number of pollsters, had them neck on neck. I saw some Facebook analytics that had been done by some people who they get excited about elections and data and things like that. And I think some of them had Kenyatta winning. And so if he wins, I don't think it will be anything surprising, because these same models were used, in the U.S. elections to predict the victory of Donald Trump, and he eventually won. And so it's not anything surprising. But for me, what it will mean for ordinary Kenyans if, Uhuru Kenyatta continues in power will be the extent to which they can pursue the developmental agenda of the country.
Which is key.
Absolutely. And what is exciting for me about this particular elections, given the history of Kenya when they go to the polls, is that they have recorded, no violence. I'm not too sure how that has panned out, how the security apparatus...
Early in the day, there were reports that some people, right after voting, they leave Nairobi because they were uncertain.
Yeah, once bitten, twice shy.
Yes.
Right? Because if you have gone to the polls before, if you have voted before, and you end up staying around and something happens, well, you have yourself to blame. If any mishap should occur on you as an individual. And so I think that strategy would have worked. But some of the reports we got yesterday and some of the updates we had coming from Kenya was that they were prepared this time around to ensure that the security apparatus was up and running. There were concerns about, infrastructure that was going to support the elections, particularly when that elections, the IT manager for the elections was killed before they went to the polls. And so I think they've been able to live up to the expectations that many observers had. And I think they're equally following the foot of countries like Ghana and some others that we have across the sub-region.
Well, Patrick, right now we can take our viewers to K24 and bring them some live pictures from Kenya.
That'll be extremely helpful.
Well, we're doing that right now.
Stations here were closed. Actually, where I'm standing right now will be the main tallying center, rather is the main tallying center for Busia County. So far in this room, which also served as one of the polling centers, they're now counting votes for members of county assembly, which means they are done with the votes for president and member of parliament, which of course has been the order of counting votes here. Earlier on, we had an opportunity to talk to the presiding officer manning this place, and he told us that everything has been cool and fine. In fact, he said there has been no incident whatsoever since the day started off. Maybe just to give you a sneak preview of what has been done so far, beginning with the presidential candidates. Raila Odinga in this particular room, because this polling center had at least 4 rooms, garnered 381 votes, followed by the incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta, who got 113 votes, and Joseph Nyaga had 1 vote. The rest of the 4 candidates that are remaining did not manage even to secure 1 vote. Busia County, maybe in retrospect of what happened in 2013, it will be remembered that it largely voted for the opposition, or rather Raila Odinga, who emerged the win in this county with 88% of the votes cast, which actually translates to 186,000, comparing to the then registered number of voters, which was standing at 251,000 voters. But for this year, or rather for this election, Busia County has 351,000 registered voters, and we are hoping that the various presidential candidates, as the counting continues in various polling stations, a lot is bound to.
And we are grateful to KTV for that update from Kenya on the trends that we're observing from the elections. And it looks like Uhuru Kenyatta has about 1.6 million votes now.
And Raila Odinga 1.3.
1.3 million.
We'll see how that goes.
Right. That ends Insight for tonight. We'll be back with the weather, EZO, and some other stories. You're welcome back, and now we take a look at the weather developments over the next 24 hours. You're welcome back to News Tonight, and we take a look at some sports developments now. And the sports stories for tonight, the general manager of Wafa, George Fusuhine, has commended their performance this season to lessons the team learned from previous seasons. He added that experience has always been a good teacher, since learning from mistakes helps the team to become better.
Well, we've been motivated a lot from the... we always go back to know where we are coming from the 3 seasons ago, that we return back to the Premier Division. And you know, the 3 seasons ago, at the end of the season, we were in the 10th position, and then we motivated ourselves, and then we moved from the 10th position. In the second season, we moved to the 6th position. So with the third season, from the blast of the whistle, we wanted to be in the top 4, and then but so good, we are still in the target that we set ourselves. That is in the top 4 bracket. So, and then I will also say that the technical team, the playing body, they have played together, they understand themselves. That is even the 100% motivation from the management level also for them.
Now, the Deputy Youth and Sports Minister, Pius Enam Hajide, has admitted the Ghana team failed to prepare adequately for the ongoing World Championship in London, hence the poor performance.
The reality is that we need to prepare. And for us in this ministry, I personally hold the view that we may not have been fully prepared. And preparation doesn't happen within this last couple of months that this administration has been in power. To be able to compete on that stage and be able to win laurels, there has to be a long-term strategic plan. At this point, I believe that we all need to take a break and assess the level of preparedness for all of these international engagements. And maybe for some time we may have to focus on developing talents first and making sure that we are up to a certain minimum standard before we venture out onto the international arena. Preparations is key.
To the Premiership now, where Arsenal manager Arsene Wenger admits that confusion over his future may have affected the club's performance over last season.
You know, it's down to us to keep a positive atmosphere around the team. I think a lot was created by my own situation, and maybe I made a mistake, but overall I believe that it's down to us. The trend and has always to come from the team.
All right, so that was your sports news. We are taking a break and we will be back. Do stay with us.
Regions, 5 marshals, over 40 destinations.
Anything can happen close to the swamp and the crocodiles.
The thrills, the adventure.
Get inside and you never come back.
Reliving the lost history, experiencing the culture.
Even the kids have the same respect when anybody enters this place, and this place is the house of Okonfo Anoche, the most powerful fetish priest ever lived.
10 intriguing stories with the Sky Marshals, showing this and every Saturday at 2:30 p.m. on GH1 TV.